Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex. Been a long time since I've made a video, but football season is almost upon us. It's July 3rd. You know what that means? That means fall camp is starting up next month. Training camp for the NFL. Preseason gonna be kicking off soon too. And next month, you guys know there's college football games on. What is it? August 24th, I believe. We've got games. So we're almost there, so that means it's time for futures. Now, I like doing future bets in college. I'm going to have something for NFL, so I'll do an NFL video at another time. But one thing I really like doing is over-under wins. Uh, Last year, about a year ago this time, I made a video, kind of gave my preview of the college football season. And then I talked a lot about Ole Miss and how I thought Ole Miss was one of the 10 best teams in the country. And I went ahead and did an over-unders futures bet on them, over-under wins futures bet on them. Now, Ole Miss was 6.5. Vegas was crazy. I couldn't believe when I saw that number. 6.5 for Ole Miss. Being lazy, I caught them at 7.5. But Ole Miss, I had no worries. I knew Ole Miss was one of the best teams in the country, and I easily covered that. So now I want to do something for you guys, and I'm going to give you a few over-under bets that I like for this season. Bets that I plan on doing. You can do them all. You can do none of them. You can do whatever the use you like, of course. But this is what I like this season. So first, starting off with Wisconsin. Now, when you talk about Wisconsin, you're talking about Luke Fickell's second year there, right? His first year there, uh, it- inconsistent, up and down. Luke Fickell was one of the hot commodities as a coach coming out of Cincinnati that a lot of bigger schools wanted. And I think he's a great coach, but he tried to shift from the ground and pound that's been Wisconsin's offensive identity forever, really, to more of a passing game. So he got Phil Longo as the OC, and they kind of try to incorporate a kind of like an air raid attack, but still would run the ball because they had Braylon Allen at running back, so they want to still feed their best player. And, up and down, they had some really rocky moments offensively. They ended up averaging only 20 points a game, I believe. So it didn't go that well. They ended up going 7-6 on the season. But here we go, second year in the system, same OC, same playbook, right? So some new faces, but a lot of the same faces, including the offensive line. You've got Jack Nelson and Riley Malman back, so you've got an offensive line foundation there to work with. At receiver, you got a ace number one in Will Paulding, and the number two in Bryson Green is also back. So you got receivers to work with. At quarterback, they had Tanner Mordecai. He didn't really work out, but I think, me personally, I think they upgraded in getting Miami's former starter, Tyler Van Dyke, to transfer in. Now, Tyler Van Dyke is known as being a head case. He started to throw a lot of interceptions at Miami. I never thought he was an NFL prospect, but I thought he was a good quarterback who has tools. And I think things just kind of spiraled out of control for him. Now he's got a new environment, a new environment, new faces, new coaching staff, and in this system, this Phil Longo passing game, I think it kind of fits him because he's that prototype pocket passing type quarterback, and that can really work in this offense. And he's had moments of really good accuracy. So he's got those weapons I talked about. Yes, Braylon Allen moved on to the NFL, but Chaz Malusi decided to return for his sixth year at running back, and then they also got Tyree Walker from Oklahoma to transfer him. So they're going to have a good 1-2 combination there. So to me, this offense is going to really improve. That's what I see going forward for Wisconsin. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they got Leon Lowry from Syracuse to transfer in. He's a big-time linebacker for Syracuse. He's going to team up with Daryl Peterson. That's going to give a really good 1-2 punch, two leaders at the linebacker position on the defense. And then Ricardo Hallman at corner is probably going to be one of the top corners in the country this season. So they got some pieces on the defensive side of the ball too. So then when I look at this schedule, I mean, I'll tell you now, there's a lot of talk out there that Wisconsin might not really see any improvement from last year. So looking at this schedule, you got to play Alabama at home game in Camp Randall, though. They're going to be going crazy in that one. I'm not saying Wisconsin's going to win. I'm not calling that yet. We'll wait till game week. But they've got them at home. Then you look and see some of these other games, especially in this finishing kick, at Nebraska and Minnesota. Those are two games that I think they could easily win. So if they're in range of clearing their over, I think it could happen. And if you're going with the under on the other side, you might be kind of dicey because at Nebraska, home with Minnesota, Wisconsin can win those games. So now let's take a look at what the actual over under is, and that is over The over under is set at 7.5, so that's what Vegas got. I haven't seen a lot of movement with this. Maybe maybe it's still too early for that, but I haven't seen a lot of movement with this. So it's 7.5. I I like Wisconsin to be strong this year. I think Wisconsin is definitely going to be kind of a top 20 type team in the country. Definitely, I think they're going to clear that 7.5. And I think if you're going with the over, if you're a Wisconsin fan, you're probably going to be celebrating a lot this year because I think that you're going to find yourself in a nice bowl game if bowl games even really matter anymore, right? It's all about the college football playoff. But that's for another video. So that's what I like as far as Wisconsin. I like the over 7.5 with Wisconsin. Now moving on to our next over under, and that would be the Virginia Tech Hokies. All right, so Virginia Tech is a team that brings back a lot of players from a 7-16. Virginia Tech was a team that started off really slow last year. Things were kind of shaky going. I had Grant Wells at quarterback. There's a lot of inconsistency there. Defense wasn't wrapping up, wasn't tackling well. Offensively and defensively, they had issues. But as the season wore on and Kyron Jones established himself more and more as the starting quarterback and as the QB1 for the team, the things started really pick up for the team, both offensively and defensively. Virginia Tech finished strong, crushed UVA in their rival in the finale, and went on to a bowl game and went 7-6 on the season. They're bringing back a lot of players. There are a lot of starters coming back from last year's team. I've already mentioned Drones. You're also looking at all the receivers coming back. Ollie Jennings, who was their number one, who missed pretty much all of last year, he's back to team up with Jalen Lane and Daquan Felton to give them a really good trio of wide receiver. You got an absolute dog at running back in Basil Tootin, who I think is one of the best running backs in the country. Definitely would put him in the top 5, and nobody knows about him. That's the craziest thing. An absolute dog at running back. Then defensively, they bring back pretty much all their linebackers. Keontae Jenkins and Kelly Lawson, and those guys are coming back. And they bring back, and in the secondary, they bring back a very experienced Dorian Strong and Mansour Delaney. Maybe not the top secondary players you can find, but with a ton of experience, and that's got to count for something, I think, and it will. I think it will count for something this season. And then here's one of the biggest things with Virginia Tech is because I've heard a little noise out there about the Hokies this year. A lot of people are on this train, or not a lot, but there are people out there on this train. And one of the reasons is if you look at the schedule, I mean, it's Cupcake City, at Vandy, Marshall, at ODU, which is crazy. Why are you going on the road to ODU when you're the big school in Virginia? At Stanford. I mean, that's going to be one of the worst teams in the country this year. Followed up by a Boston College game, which I believe is a Thursday night game in Lane Stadium. So they're going to crush them. There's a lot of cupcakes on this schedule. So when you look at that, then you take a look at the over-under of 7.5. I'm like, I don't know about that. That 7.5 seems really low to me. I think Virginia Tech can easily, looking at this schedule, I could easily see Virginia Tech going 10-2, maybe 9-3, depending on how good Kyron Jones plays this year. But this over 7.5, I definitely like. So that's another over I'm going to take. So that's another one. If you're a Hokie fan, and if you did this over, you're going to be partying. I think you'll be partying before the UVA game comes around, I believe. Moving on, let's go to our third game that I have for you, and that is, or team I have for you, and that is the Florida Gators. Florida Gators been out there in the college football universes for the wrong reasons surrounding their schedule. If you take a look at this schedule, and everybody's talking about this finishing kick. Georgia and Jacksonville, at Texas, home LSU, home Ole Miss, and at Florida State. Everybody's talking about that finishing kick. This is the hardest schedule in the country, no question about it. That's the hardest finishing kick anybody's going to have in the country. Nobody has a finishing kick like that in college football. This never happens. I guess it's just some kind of fluke occurrence for the Gators, but it doesn't look good for the Gators if you're looking at it from that perspective. But then you look at Florida. This is a team that went 5-7 last year, but they played a lot of close games with a very young team. This is one of the youngest teams in college football last season, and they bring back a lot of guys. So Graham Mertz is going to be a 6-year quarterback, now 1 year in the system at Billy Napier's system, over 70% completion percentage. He throws a lot of short passes, but there was times he was cooking last year too. I think you're going to see a lot more of that cooking this season. At running back, they lose Trevor Etienne to Georgia in a transfer. But they still bring back Montrell Johnson. He was pretty. They were splitting time as a 1A, 1B last year, so they still got a starting caliber running back for the SEC. And then a receiver. You got Super Frosh, who's going to be now super sophomore Trey Wilson, one of the better receivers in the SEC. But they added Elijah Badger, Arizona State's number one. They added Kamir DK from Wisconsin, who last year kind of faded in that rotation because of the new offense. But 2 years ago, he was Graham Mertz's number one at Wisconsin. So Florida, you can make the argument, has three number ones at wide receiver. They made some changes at offensive line going into the portal and getting some actual starters who can actually play offensive tackle. So I think you're going to see this Florida Gator offense completely reshaped and look a whole lot better than they were last year. And last year they had moments of looking great and explosive. Defensively was their issue. The biggest move they made on defense this year is they basically promoted, we'll say, their defensive coordinator last year was completely unqualified, Austin Armstrong, for the role. They promoted him to a new role, and they hired an actual defensive coordinator, Ryan Roberts, who comes over from Auburn. If you guys remember, Auburn last year had a really stingy defense. He's coming over, and he's taking over a Florida Gator defense that was very young last season. I think you're going to see them be a whole lot better on the defensive side of the ball as well. Bring back a lot of guys on the D-line, linebackers as well. I mean, they're not that strong at linebacker. And then in the secondary, I mean, there's just a lot of bodies coming back. A lot of players got a lot of snaps last year coming back, and that's got to count for something. But here's the craziest thing. I mean, if Vegas, maybe they're listening to all the noise out there because this thing is 4.5. This was 5.5, dropped to 4.5, went back to 5.5. I checked on this yesterday, July 2nd, if you need to know, and it was back down to 4.5. I got to tell you, that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. This is an overplay if I've ever seen one. Because I'm looking at these first 5 games. I think Miami, and that's going to be it for another video. I think Miami's going to be very stout, but they beat Miami. I could see you covering this in the first 5 games because I could see them starting out 5-0. This is a crazy over under to me. I think you want to run out, race out to your nearest sports book and slam this over because 4.5 is absolutely insane. So I think you take that 4.5. I'm going over. And I think you're definitely celebrating at the end of this season. Hell, you might be celebrating by midseason. And my final pick, leading into Florida State. Florida State is a team that had a great year last year. They were the oldest team in college football last season. They went 13-1. Some argue that maybe they should have gone to the national or to the college football playoff. I disagreed with that. They had a schedule ranked in the 80s. Everything broke right for them. They had a schedule ranked in the 80s. Half the teams they played had to play their backup quarterback that game because of injury. And like I said, they were the oldest team, and they were a good team too. So everything kind of broke their way last year. And I think a lot of that is kind of been kind of spiraling into this season. Because this season, Florida State, if you look at any preview magazines or any college football experts out there, a lot of them, they got Florida State going 11-1 this year and definitely in the college football playoff and all of that. Let me tell you guys something. This team is downgraded across the board. So I don't know what anybody's talking about. If you let somebody tell you Florida State is going to be great next season, ask them who do they have on their team that's telling you they're going to be great. Jordan Travis is a downgrade to DJU. DJU is a 55% completion percentage passer. And now he's in a new system with new receivers. The receivers, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, to who? Malik Benson transferred from Alabama. He was their number 4 at best. When they got Keon Coleman last year, Keon Coleman was Michigan State's number 1. That's not the same. Running back, Trey Benson, who I always thought was kind of overrated, but he was their starting running back. He's gone. Now you got Lawrence Toafili, a career committee back. He's been there 10 years. I mean, he's not a special running back. So what are we talking about here offensively? I don't see. Jaheim Bell, also gone. I don't see what people are talking about. Offensively, downgraded. Defensively, they lost Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk. Defensively, they had Patrick Payton coming off the edge. Great pass rusher off the edge. But who else on defense? Anybody that you look at? They haven't had a good linebacker in 10 years. Their top corner, Renardo Green, who got cooked up by anybody with talent, he's gone. Their top backup corner, Greedy Vanks, he transferred. So who on Florida State, when you're talking about Florida State is going to go 11-1, who on this team is good? I don't see it. And this over-under is coming in at 9.5. That seems way too high to me. That's way too high to me. I'm going under. I'm slamming under on this. I can see first off that game against Georgia Tech and Ireland. That's going to be a tougher game than people think. I can promise you that. I don't know yet who I'm going to pick to win that one, but it's going to be much tougher than you think. But the half of this from Clemson, then you have to go on the road to Duke, on the road to Miami team. That's going to I think Miami on paper right now today. I think Miami will crush them. UNC at Notre Dame. Yeah, you got Charleston Southern, and then you play Florida. 9.5. I only need 3 losses. Oh, I can see that. So I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to work out for Florida State this year. I'm slamming that under. I think if you're taking that under, you'll be celebrating. But if you're a Noel fan who took the over, you're going to look like this come the end of the season. But anyways, that pretty much wraps it up. And that wraps it up. Sorry for taking this a little long-winded. I just want to give you guys 4 futures to consider for this coming season. I know it's a little early in July, but I want you guys to get out there before these over-unders really turn into bet up or down to a place that you don't want to take it. But anyways, if you like the content, please like, follow, subscribe, all of that. And you'll see my YouTube handle here in a few seconds. Take care.